Hey y'all, welcome back to DiamondTrail Ranch. Today we're out here in the garden working on saving some of our tomato plants. Here you can see our dead sunset and black cherry tomatoes. I'm not going to move those quite yet, they're not ready. The garden isn't ready itself. I got to thin out some other tomatoes. That's what I'm going to be really going over today. I am going to go ahead and move some of these though. Over just to kind of get a feel for what I'm doing over here. I'm thinning out the other tomatoes. The other ones are going to be standard cherry and possibly Roma, I believe. But we'll see when we get over here. I got quite a bit of tomatoes that grew very healthy right on top of each other over there. Um, so I planted way too many in one spot, particularly where I have bundles on one spot and then bundles on another spot and then bundles on another spot. So they're growing like crazy, and honestly, they're too far along to just pull out and toss. So we're going to try to rescue them. These guys are tall, leggy, and just definitely overcrowded in general. So these are the bamboo sticks I'm going to be using that I could find for now. I actually have to go back and get more. I have to order some more as well. I can also use sticks in the yard, anything to help support the backbone of these tomatoes I'm going to be transplanting, because that's what's going on. And I'm going to use some string as well. So they're going to get moved to a new spot. It's going to be great. They're going to be able to breathe. I'm hoping with water and TLC in general, these guys will survive. The compost over here, I was finding worms under this while just going down an inch or two underneath. It was just amazing. The soil under this is amazing. And yes, I know, I need to clean off the top. I will get to that. There's just been so much going on around. If you guys homestead, you know how it is. You know, it's one thing after another. So, first things first, let me show you guys what I'm dealing with here. Put these gloves down. It's just easier to do it by hand, honestly, without the gloves, because I can feel and transplant. So you can see over here just how tightly packed they're going to be. I'm going to make some new holes just to get kind of started. Typically what you want to do is, depending on your setup, is use something like a fire, butane torch, lighter. Scissors work, but it kind of, you know, you're going to get some frills on the edges. It is what it is. You can replace it. It just won't last as long. I'm going to be thinning these tomatoes out. You'll see here in a few just how tightly packed these things really are. So I cut stars or X's in these. And you can go back and you kind of clip the outside so that flap's not there anymore. Take care of some of these weeds that are coming over from the front there. That front corner of the property. So these are spots where the tomato's going to go. I'll go about a couple inches deep, and or an inch, depending on how shallow, how short these tomatoes really are. I want to put some by this big trellis. I got some squash and beans over here, but it's really not going up, honestly. Not yet, anyway. I got to work on, you know, trellising them upward, getting them upward with, like, you can use string, you can use anything, rope, you know, to just help the squash grow upward and not outward. Not that I don't have the room for it, and it's on a black tarp, weed fabric barrier, so I'm not honestly worried about it spreading outward. The melons are not going to go up. This year we just don't have the support right now to get the melons to go up, so I'm going to let them spread out. You can see some of our squash. I had to cut some of the other squash. I'm deviating a little bit from the tomatoes here, but I'll get back to it. What I'm doing is, like I said, cutting out holes to transplant some. And you're just going to see the volume is just so sheer. And so many. Tons of them right there in that spot. They're so bunched up, but they're so healthy. So I had to keep them, you know. They're beautiful. There's no reason not to try to keep them. So, you know, I get a little excited when I planted these. I'm like any gardener. Look at that. I mean, that's gorgeous. So we're going to be thinning them out, moving them. I did a classic gardener move, right? We're flexible. Gardeners are flexible. take them all, move them all, give them a home. They're very far along, very healthy. I'm gonna be taking the strongest ones to keep in this section over here and digging up the others carefully so I don't disturb the roots too much. Tomatoes can be a bit dramatic when you move them around, but they're tougher than we give them credit for, honestly. I've seen these things like just completely falling over, and a little bit of TLC, you know, goes a long way with these guys. Look at that. I mean, right on top of each other. They look like they got like almost carrot stems going on. They're so tightly grown together. And I'm able to just grip them by my fist instead of typically you do it further up, you know. And they're just that strong. So you're just going to go down, make the hole big enough, like a pot, you know, pot size hole, and go down and around there. Look how dark that soil is. It's gorgeous. I'm saving all these tomatoes, guys, and I can't wait to give you guys an update on how these hold up, because I think it's going to go really well. So you're going to be a trick that I learned when I decided what plants to keep in their spots. You want to check for the thickest stems and the most upright growth. Those are your winners. Hopefully that's a little common sense for you. You know, the strongest one, if you got 5 together and one of them is just taking over the others, keep the strongest one there. As I'm pulling them out, I'm trying to get as much of the root ball out as I can. If the soil's moist, they'll come up a lot easier. The soil's moist here, so you can see you get a nice root ball where the soil's kind of compact around the roots. It's so you don't get that transplant shock you're typically seeing in plants. You know, they transplant when the leaves turn yellow. It's like they get scared. Sometimes you can use Miracle-Gro. There's transplant treatment for that. Duck water fertilizer works well. See, that one there is a good transplant candidate. I mean, look at the leaves. It's a full-on tomato you'd buy in the store for $3 to $5, depending on where you live. There's no reason to toss that thing out. Sometimes they just take off. So, over there you saw I cleared a few new spots. I like to add a little compost if necessary. If you have worm castings, go ahead. I have actual worms, so I didn't need that. You're going to want to plant them nice and deep. Tomatoes love that. You've probably seen the videos where people plant them all the way up to the first set of leaves. There's back and forth arguments about that, but it's definitely not going to hurt it by doing that. You're going to help get it a stronger base. It's going to grow a new root system that much further. So, depending on like I said, back and forth controversy on that. So you got some smaller ones here. You can see that were kind of like, are they worth saving? And I said, you know what, I got the room for it. I'm going to do it. So I went ahead and I took these smaller ones, and we're going to transplant them, you know. We'll talk about support again here in a minute, and you're going to give them a good watering. When these are all packed in, I'm going to give them a good watering. I actually have the sprinkler that I use. I angled it to where it's going to just hit these tomatoes. That way there's less shock. Because if you put them in soaking wet in their new location, it helps them. You're less likely to get that transplant shock. So you're kind of dealing with two negatives. Not only did you plant them on top of each other, but then you got to move them into a new location and hope that they didn't die originally from being too close to the other tomatoes. Now you gotta hope that they don't die getting moved to their new location. So, generally it's not hard unless you're dealing with like clay or sand for you're trying to plant these in Arizona or something. Support, you're gonna you see how tall and floppy these things are. So you use whatever you got on hand. Bamboo sticks, old broom handles, branches from the yard are pretty realistic. Again, unless you live in like a clay desert, maybe you can tie them to a rock. I'm just kidding. Just add something sturdy. I see some wild videos on here where people are, they have the haul in soil from different states because they just don't have the amenities for it, and it's interesting. I live in tropical zone 10A. Obviously it's ideal for anything green, but only for a handful of months out of the year. It just gets so hot here. So but I'm a firm believer that there's a difference in full sunlight when they say 6 to 8 hours in a higher zone than there is in the maybe lower zones. I think 2 to 3 hours in this area would be considered full sun, with the rest shade, kind of like how it is right now. You see where I am in this video. Everything does well. You know, I got all these full sun plants over here, and actually my peas are already dying because they're getting too much sun exposure, and they're hardly getting more than 4 hours over here. So I didn't expect anything really to get too hot, and it's April. It's not even, you know, May or June or July over here in this zone. Anyway, so just a little ramble there on zone 10A and tropical, and what kind of amenities you have for planting tomatoes into the ground. I like to pull these weeds out of the way because they're coming over from the main garden. I didn't end up using those gloves just because, you know, you get so much more done with your natural hands, and I'm not going to get bit by a rattlesnake under the under this weed fabric barrier. We might have some brown recluse. I have seen some gnarly wolf spiders and stuff on this property, but that's a whole nother topic. I'll tell you what, I am not a fan of spiders, but we have so many chickens here, and that they help with natural pest control. So a whole nother topic that we'll probably be getting into soon is rabbits. It's looking like we're going to be picking up some rabbits soon, so stay tuned for that. That's going to be a whole nother section for us that we're diving into on our homestead. Pretty excited about that. Rabbits are versatile, you know, especially for self-sufficiency. They don't take up hardly any room. If you got chickens and rabbits, I mean, you got your meat and your eggs between those two animals. That's fantastic. And your fertilizer for this gardening that I'm doing, that none of this stuff was bought commercially. This is all stuff homegrown. So some of this section of seeds, most of it came from a store-bought tomato that I sliced up and stuck in cups, and they sprouted up. And I had dozens of them from a store-bought tomato, one little tomato, and this is what I'm dealing with right now, this video, which is great. So, and you can do that. You can keep harvesting your seeds and go over and over, and you create your own heirloom effectively. You know, they're used to their environment, what they're doing. It's just great in general. Well, let's go back to support. These babies are, pretty tall. They're floppy, like I was saying. So you use what you got on hand. I was saying bamboo sticks, regular yard sticks. I actually did take some branches. And what else? I tie up them with string and garden twine. You're pushing in there, packing it in real nice. It's a good transplant candidate, as usual, as you see on all of these. As I said, you can use the bamboo and the twine, any kind of string to keep it loosely tied. Here I am with another one, unpacking that hole, sticking that root ball down in there. It's going to be real nice. Got some spots cleared up. You want to make sure, when you're doing this, you're trimming those bottom leaves. Super important, especially here in zone 10, because things stay warm and humid here. So the bottom leaves are close to the soil, and that's where diseases like blight love to start. I just snip them. You can pinch them off. Pruners, clean set of pruners is preferred. I do have those. They're a little big for what I'm working with here, though, but easy peasy. It also helps when you trim those lower leaves and stems coming off the sides there to get the plant to focus energy growing up and fruiting. not maintaining the leaves that literally don't do much of anything, since you already got enough leaves up at the top. So we're working on getting about, I'd say probably close to a dozen tomatoes moved and tied up. They're looking way happier already as I do this, and I haven't even watered them yet, which is magnifico. You know, we don't need to mulch around these because we're using weed fabric, right? But if you're going to pick a spot that doesn't have a barrier between the ground and the tomato, you're going to want to put down some kind of mulch around the top of it to help keep that moisture in. So guys, if you got tomatoes growing close together, don't be afraid to move them. You'd be surprised how resilient they really are, even when they're this big. This is actually, in my opinion, a fantastic time to move them. So you can see, look how far along these guys are. Tons of biggies. Also, you want to make sure you don't accidentally step on your plants while you're doing this. If you have more room, you can spread them out even more. If you got tomato cages, those are ideal as well over individual tomatoes, depending on the room you're working with. I know you might think that these are really tight together. I actually have probably another 40 tomatoes at least that I have to put on this fabric barrier. So got to make and do with the room I have. Yeah, I know they say thin out, you know, you keep one or two good plants, but I like to keep them, you know, why not? You can go either way with it. You can thin them out and kill them off and have a couple of tomatoes, or you can have it abundant and give them to your neighbor, you know, love thy neighbor. In any way you can, you know, be nice, fruitful, supply. There are groups out there. There's one group actually specifically on Facebook. It's not a group, it's a page. I believe it's called Off the Grid Land. I'll have to double check that. There it is. I put it on the page for you. These guys are a local marketplace for regenerative gardeners to buy, sell, share, and trade local abundance. So shout out to them on Facebook, Off the Land. They're really cool. They reached out. If you have any extra items or anything, kind of like a global farmers market, you know, if you have any little bit of anything, any extra tomatoes, any extra milk, any extra cheese, any extra sourdough bread, any extra potatoes, it's a community of farmers that they're working on putting together. It's really cool, so I'd check them out. If you want an abundance of stuff, that's how it really should be with gardening. I think that's a great idea. So if you know anybody in the homestead community, farm community, ranchette, you name it, check out their page. This stuff is an absolute passion. I do want to, while I'm doing this, thank you guys for hanging out with me today while I'm rescuing these tomato babies. I'm really hoping these guys reward us later on, you know, this summer with a ton of juicy fruit. And who knows, maybe we can post them up to our neighbors, to our off the land partners, and I think we're going to have an absolute ton of tomatoes this year. I think we're going to have a lot of corn as well. I actually want to get some more corn on the ground, but we're creeping up on May in my zone. That's kind of but if I keep them in a shady area, I might be able to pull it off. This isn't the only area that I have corn. There's some, you can see it over here by my tomatoes at the end there. I'm walking up by them, but I have tons of corn up on the front of the property as well, the other front of the property, not this front. But I'm hoping to have that versatile stuff. You know, I want to get more tomatoes going. We have sweet potatoes going, thanks to our friend Josh. He's awesome. Does all of our work for us over here effectively. He's got a big, great garden going on as well. These are the bamboo sticks again you saw me with earlier that I was talking about. So we're gonna stick these in the ground, and I think it should be good. You might be wondering, man, you're not sticking those in the ground very far. So this part of the property is kind of funny. I am kind of convinced there might be an old driveway about a foot under this garden, as weird as that sounds. I'm not really sure. This property was built in '78, and this part of the property specifically is kind of unusual. It was almost, you know, you have the asphalt driveway a few feet over, about 15 feet over from where I'm doing this. And I'm kind of wondering how far over it actually comes over, because you can see me poking down. I can't get it in the ground right here, and there's not a septic tank. The septic on this property, this is nowhere near the home itself. This is over by the horse barn. So I honestly am not sure why things don't like to go very deep over here. Yeah, if you want to let me know in the comment section below what could possibly be under here. Again, I looked at every, you know, the parcel. I looked at the property records. I mean, and just there wasn't anything going as far back as this property was created. So I don't know. It is right next to the trail where we get our name, DiamondTrail Ranch. The baseball diamonds. The trail's right next to us. I don't know that it has anything to do with it. There used to be an old railroad, so that trail next to us used to be an old railroad track. So I doubt there's any remains of that over here. These snow peas are dead, so I'm gonna acquire these sticks. I actually ran out of sticks, so like I said, use anything you have, use anything you can on your property. So you can't win it all. You can't win it all in a garden. Some things will die. It's okay. Plant in abundance. Make sure you just get an abundance of things growing. I mean, really, because you can't have too much. You can have too little though, but you can't have too much. You can give it away. You don't even have to sell it. You can give it away. Someone will take your fruits and vegetables for free. We have 100 beating hearts on this property between the animals, so something will eat it. You can't have too much of it here. I'm sure any of you other homestead properties are the same way on this channel, or up and coming or wanting to get into it. I remember not too long ago we didn't have any of this stuff, and now here we are. It's pretty awesome. It's a blessing. I thank God every day for this. This is right here where the grass is as well. Go ahead and pull the grass. I get the grass out of the way because it fights with the root system of these tomatoes. That's the only issue with if you set the weed fabric down and you don't wait long enough for everything to die underneath it. Water does go through it, and obviously it's supposed to, and it helps water the plants, keep the soil nice and wet, moist, and doesn't dry out. Make sure you watch your hands though when you're doing this bare-handed, bare-knuckled, because I've seen a thing or two running away, scatter away when I go under there. That tries to live in that moisture. Still trying to find good spots for all these sticks, because I can't. Some of these areas I can't get an inch or two under the ground. So anyway, I also am temporarily using these little grain trellises here. You see. I'm just taking bamboo from all over the property. It's funny. That string is a temporary string. Use what you got. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. Some of these channels are funny. I see people on YouTube telling you that you need to buy this bag of dirt from the big box store. You need to buy this specific fertilizer. You need to buy this non-GMO organic, you know, worm diarrhea, whatever. And it's like, no, you don't. This stuff doesn't need that. It really doesn't. You can test your soil and then go from there. There's different mixtures you can get, but it doesn't have to be so specific that you're making a Starbucks order, putting a tomato plant in the ground. It's just, that's... Anyway, that's a little bit of a tangent with some of these channels that are just... they're showing off their soil bags like it's, a venti iced mocha frap for their tomato plant. And I'm like, oh boy, I get it. We want to feed what we love, healthy and great things. And we do live in a day and age where we're trying to take the additives and everything out of the food, which is fantastic. The colors, we don't know what the studies are coming out that we don't know what's in our food at the end of the day. These colors that aren't natural, like blue, in our food. So these colors are getting banned all the time, which is great, and I'm hoping what's going on with all that, I'm hoping it goes in a positive direction, which is great. I don't want to dig too much on that, though. YouTube doesn't like that kind of stuff. So you see this string I'm going around. I'm actually weaving it around these bamboo sticks to help kind of create a little bit of a tension with the tomato plants, because these ones here were real sad. I actually have to come back and add water to them. You can see how slopped over they are and wet. Not wet. They need water, so they need to be wet. But they're just unhappy tomato plants. So we're going to get these a little bit, we're going to get this string down as low as we can, and we're going to support these tomato plants. That's what I'm doing here. So I'm going to cut this yarn. I know you guys are going to kill me for, somebody's going to comment on this. I already know it. I'm using my wife's yarn to tie up these tomato plants. I couldn't find our normal string. I'm just being honest. There's a normal string I use for this outdoor that's better catered to this. Again, use what you have. I think that's why I've said 10 times now, use what you have, because this was the next best thing. And let me tell you about the amount of yarn we have. It's ridiculous. So one roll ain't gonna, a couple of pieces off of it's not gonna kill nothing. When she watches this, she's gonna kill me for that. So anyway, still tying it in between. I hope you guys are enjoying this video, and I really hope you're learning something. If you've never put thinned out and transplanted tomatoes when they're further along, I mean like 2 months along or a month, that's why you have such a weird variance of a tomato that looks like it's only a month old or 6 days to 2 weeks old, and then some of them look like they're 2 months old, just because when they're when they're together like that and they're all sitting on the same root ball, you need to spread them out, because they're all kind of suffocating each other down there, and some of them are getting stunted. So you thin them out, and that's where you get all these glorious heights and varieties going on. It's a fantastic thing. So we're going to keep using the string and go from there. Again, I want to thank you guys for sticking around with me while I do this. You know, thank you so much for hanging out. If you guys can do me a favor and hit that like button, subscribe. It's free to subscribe, doesn't hurt anything, you don't lose anything. If you're new here, if this is your first time here, you can hit that bell. It'll let you know every time I upload a video. Maybe leave a comment saying hey or heart or fire or anything, you know. Just helps with that engagement number a little bit to help this new channel grow, so we can get awareness on what it's like to be a little more self-sufficient every day. This is DiamondTrail Ranch, and I thank you guys for checking out my channel, and continue to enjoy the rest of this video on how to thin out and prune these tomato plants into a new location when they're a lot further along than they probably should be. I need like 9 more sticks, man.